Awesome.
All
All right, everyone, welcome back. And today we're luckily joined by a true staple of New Zealand mixed martial arts, City Kickboxing and UFC PI in China's own, Mike Angove. Mike, appreciate you giving us some time out. I know you just finished training and it's a little bit sweaty. So first of all, man, how's your day been today?
It's pretty warm here in Bali at the moment. We've got most of the Road to UFC team here from Shanghai, China's PI. So that's 4 or 5 weeks out. So it's full on in fight camp. 2 or 3 sessions a day and about 5 or 6 liters of water a day. So full on.
Mike, as a striking coach for what is quickly becoming one of the best gyms in the world in City Kickboxing, I'd love to know your own martial arts journey and sort of how it began, more so in the early days before your kickboxing career sort of kicked off, and what initially caught your interest in martial arts in the time where it was growing. It really was a growing sport.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple story, to be honest. We had guys at sort of secondary school from third form, and in my days, God knows what it was, what it is now. I can never remember a year, whatever.
Yeah.
So from about 12 to 13, we had some of these other guys who all did Zendo Kai, which has an Australian background, was founded by Bob Jones over in Australia. And when I got to about 17, 18, went to a couple of classes, got punched by a couple of bigger guys in the school playground, all that kind of carry on. Went to a couple of classes, found I had an aptitude for it. And by the time I was 19, I'd sort of moved through the belts and the grading systems and got a black belt in Zendo Kai before I was 20. And Zendo Kai also, in many ways, brought in kickboxing into Australasia to a great extent, certainly into New Zealand. So that's kind of what got me started on the kickboxing journey. They were a martial art that cross-trained, if you like. Worked on the philosophy of taking what you could get from different arts and trying to make it work. And I guess that sort of dictated where I went with my career after that. And the other thing is always one to move, learn and grow. I agreed to spar a boxer one day at a gym when I was about 20, got the living shite beaten out of me, proved I only had a good jaw and not a lot else. Yeah. So that led to me going to Ron Foley's boxing gym. And Foley's, again, big name in Australasia. Mick Foley, Michael Foley, Patrick Foley, Regan Foley, who was ranked up in the top 3 in the world as an amateur. And that family has great boxing gyms now on either sides of the Tasman. So I was fortunate to get that there. And again, sort of had gloves, world travel, started in Wanganui. They moved to Palmerston North. So 3 times a week I would go down there with my 12-ounce gloves, and didn't spar in 16s in those days, to get a headache and a sore jaw, and learn how to box, and learn how to use the hands as well. So yeah, that's the slightly shorter version. And started kickboxing and eventually went to Balmoral Liga after my 3rd fight. And ended up there, and what a place to go and learn.
Yeah, for sure. So, Mike, look, something that City Kickboxing has shown with their striking on the world stage is a tactical implementation of feinting to set up their following strikes. So, similar to the jab, in my opinion, feinting is one of the most underutilized techniques in MMA today. Was the lack of feinting in MMA something that City Kickboxing just decided to take advantage of, or has focusing on using feints always been a fundamental part of your approach to striking?
I think more broadly, if you have a look at boxing in particular. Hand control, feinting, things that you do outside of just kicking and punching have an undervalued aspect to play. And, whether that's feinting to draw a reaction, feinting to stop someone from coming forward, feinting to set up. That is, so I think people are getting onto it. They have to, it's quite interesting seeing everyone's starting to feint now, but it's where you feint, how you feint, what you're setting up with that feint that also comes into it. Because feinting has been around since the dawn of time. Since the fake, the low jab to the body, come over the top with the Canelo overhand right, or feint the jab to the body and you change it up into a left hook. It's just a feint, But if you watch elite level guys, what they do at the edge of range and how they're going about setting things up, and this has been for a very long time, has always been about deception, filling the space, creating doubt, setting traps. Otherwise you just get into, Thai style where you're standing in front, touching gloves, and it's kick, punch into the clinch, or Dutch style where you're standing in slightly tighter and 50-50, and it's a shoot 'em out brawl. Which is great if you're that style of fighter, and if you have a consensual agreement between the guys, this is what we're going to do. And obviously MMA has grown and developed too, and range is pretty critical in MMA. Obviously if you're a wrestler, you don't want to get caught on the outside. If you're a striker, you don't want to get taken down. So how you fill that space and those gaps in between is pretty critical. There's a lot more to it than that. But look, it's nothing new. It's been around for a long time. There are some coaches out there on Instagram who claim that it's their system and their style. Bullshit. It's been around forever. And everyone big steals and borrows great ideas from other great coaches. And that's I'm prone to long-winded answers, but that's my response to that.
100%. Mike, obviously we know you've made the move and are doing some work now with the UFC PI in China. How has that been so far, your transition to that role and moving, doing some, having some time over there, and how ultimately moving and taking that chance, was that a hard decision to make?
Oh, it's an extremely hard decision to make. I'd much rather be training and coaching at home, in the sense that it's closer to my family. It's close to my gym, which is essentially my extended family. But these opportunities don't come up very often. Developing athletes in the Chinese market is a real opportunity and a challenge. Also remembering that you're doing a lot through a translator, so that's a challenge. But it's the best known and the biggest, the most well established mixed martial arts organization in the world. So it'd be pretty foolish not to give that opportunity and that opportunity to grow and learn, a chance. And and there's a lot of talent over in China, so it's a great opportunity to try and foster that and develop that and bring those guys up to UFC level.
For sure. So, Mike, something we're beginning to see more and more of in MMA is fighters being able to be effective from both stances. So, being far less of a slave to only fighting in orthodox or only fighting as a southpaw. As a coach, would you place more importance on being highly competent in both southpaw and orthodox, or being more purely dedicated to mastering one particular stance, whether that is southpaw or orthodox?
It's a question of whether you've grown up with it, firstly. If you've grown up as a stance switcher and you have adequate defense in the stance that is not naturally your own, then I'm very much an advocate. If you're just switching for the sake of switching, then you need to understand the positions that you're in. You need to get your attacks off from that position, and then you need to find an exit back to your stance where you're at your greatest effectiveness, particularly defensively. So I think that's what you need to understand. Just switching for the sake of switching makes no sense at all, because it's not just your offense; it's your defense and your ability to transition. So great skill to have. I would suggest for most people, if they're starting to want to switch more, be very specific about when and where they're switching, what positions you're in, what attacks you're going to look to get off, and in particular, when you switch, you need to develop enough power to keep someone off, right? So if you're an orthodox, you switch southpaw, you need to have a decent left hand. And the first thing you need to throw is several thousand left hands, so you've got enough pop off there to be balanced, to be able to deter someone. Most people switch to get the angle for the liver kick. And that's a good strategy, great strategy. But you have to know how to, what happens if your opponent doesn't bite, doesn't drift into that? How do I switch? How do I continue around, get back to orthodox? What if my opponent, throws instantly an inside low kick to check if I can actually check the inside kicks from that, or that they add pressure straight away with their own right hand. So you've got to be able to handle those things. So great skill to have, great skill to learn. But you have to be very cautious about when and where you apply it.
Yeah. Mike, as I'm sure everyone listening is aware, you've been the striking coach for, who in my opinion is the single greatest striker we've ever seen in mixed martial arts, as in middleweight champion Israel Adesanya. As Israel prepares for his contest with Alex Pereira, I've noticed the amount of people that, who are almost writing Izzy off based off of their first two fights. Do you think an Israel Adesanya that has his back up against the wall and is facing that pressure is an even more dangerous and more complete fighter?
I think Israel as an athlete, he's always better when he feels like he has to be on edge. I think certainly, Pereira is a different beast. He is very big for the weight. He has single one punch knockout power, and it's not just in his left hook, although his left hook's his trademark. He's got a great right hand as well. He's got a great chin, like he can take a big fucking shot. And he's very patient, and his shot selection is good. And the difference in this fight, yes, Israel has more experience in MMA, certainly. And, that counts for a lot. He also has 5-round experience. But both fighters really have, their grounding is obviously very much in kickboxing. So by default, it potentially becomes a kickboxing fight. Israel, this is me as an analyst, because I can't really comment, on game plans for either fighter because I'm a UFC employee. But, as an analyst, neither of them we've seen going for takedowns. So that's unlikely to change. And it's an intriguing fight because you have a slick stylist who's very good defensively against a cold-blooded killer, who has confidence. Why wouldn't you have confidence when you've achieved a knockout like that? To be fair, The first fight arguably should have gone to Israel.
Yeah.
If you watch it, but it was a well contested, close fight. I personally don't agree with the decision, but it's still it's close enough to be arguable.
Mm-hmm.
Second fight, obviously Israel was doing well, but Pereira has made a habit. He's not that hard to hit, and he's made a habit of later round knockouts with his pressure. Jason Wilness, Yusri Belgari, a number of fighters. He's been rocked or dropped early, and he's come back to win those fights by knockout. So, Pereira is the real deal. And the other thing is he speaks hardly any English, so banter is a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
It brings back, Conor McGregor versus Nate. Nate speaks English, but he doesn't give a fuck. So Conor can say whatever he wants. He's like, I don't care, motherflower. And that's the same situation here. So, the head games are different. So, this is an intriguing fight. Very, very intriguing fight. Because, remember, Pereira has been with Glover Teixeira for quite a while now. He has done his homework and his background work. He's not just turned up to the UFC, saying, "Here, give me a couple of fights." He's done his groundwork. He's worked on his defense. He's worked on his he's worked on his wrestling, obviously. And Israel did the same thing. He didn't just suddenly appear in the UFC. So, we've got to hold all that into context and just think, well, this is a great fight, which we're spoiled to see. Who's better technically? Clearly Israel. Who's a better puncher? Clearly Pereira. Who's better defensively? Definitely Israel. Who's the bigger guy? Pereira. It's got all the intriguing elements, and the fact that it's a rematch. Just noting this light above my head, giving me a bit of a glow, boys.
Yeah, exactly. You're speaking words from heaven, mate. Words from heaven. So, look, something with MMA striking, from my perspective, that has in some way come full circle is we're starting to see more implementation of traditional martial arts techniques. So, such as the sort of bladed, light on your feet stance of a karate approach that's now been employed at MMA, by people like Cejudo, Figueiredo in his last fight, and of course Michael Venom Page. Do you think in some ways there can be somewhat of an underappreciation for certain elements that can be taken from traditional martial arts and adjusted for MMA?
It's called mixed martial arts for a reason. You take the best elements and bring it into play, and it becomes a blend. So underappreciated in the extent that if you go to the traditional cliches, jiu-jitsu guys can't wrestle. Wrestlers don't know how to defend subs. Karate guys have got shit boxing. Muay Thai guys, they hold their hands too high and they're vulnerable to takedown. Kickboxers can't clinch. Boxers get their legs smashed. They're all cliches, but the sport has advanced, and because the sport has advanced and reality bites, if you're a karate guy, if that's your foundation, you don't come in just doing karate and throwing, those old, punches by the hip style punches. You come in with a good boxing game and an understanding of that. If you're a wrestler, you know how to slip, bob, weave. Your kickboxing defense is at a certain level. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you sit on your back in MMA, well, you're going to get the shit smashed out of you, 8 times out of 10 if you can't wrestle and deal with the strikes. So all of that adds up to it's now mixed martial arts, and you beg, steal, borrow, you take what works, you get rid of what doesn't, and then you add in your own style. How is your style? And if your style is sharp, and you can get off with a karate style flick kick, Rose Namajunas knocking out Wei Li, spinning back kick, if you can get that off. We're starting to see that application. But that application isn't just a spinning back kick or the flick kick. It's the fundamental foundational units that you have before that, which is solid boxing, solid wrestling, in particular takedown defense if you're a striker, or getting around the strikes if you're a wrestler. And on jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu guys are learning how to deal. Obviously, originally they were just like throwing up a sub.
Yeah.
Well, now you can't just throw up a sub because everyone knows how to defend it.
Yeah.
So everything is mixing together. And the other thing is, I've used a lot of cliches. You're getting guys who've trained mixed martial arts from the very start of their career now. So we're in a different evolution of the game where everyone comes up with a good foundational understanding of the fundamentals that mean success in MMA. So, there's a lot of change, and there will still be change. It's swinging back towards the Dagestani wrestlers or that wrestling style at the moment. But we'll see an adaptation to that. We'll see people working out how to deal with that style, and then it'll swing back in a different direction. And that's just the nature of the sport now. So, it's exciting, particularly if you're a fight nerd.
Yeah, 100%. Mike, in my opinion, you're one of the best boxing analysts in the game and have been for a long time. And with that being said, there is a big rematch here in Australia in 2 weeks. I'm sure you're aware with George Kambosos getting his rematch against Devin Haney. If you did watch that first fight, I would love to know your opinion. After the first contest, do you think there's anything George can do to Devin that could surprise him and push for a win, considering the first fight was so one-sided?
That's a tricky one. Devin's lead hand and his control were very, very good.
Yeah.
And it kept George off balance. He read George's rhythm and read George's counters. And George's speed and slightly offbeat nature is, that's what's seen him have success. I haven't given it a huge degree of thought, to be honest. I think George certainly needs to deal with the jab, and he needs to have more than a plan A.
Yeah.
And he needs to have a strategy to be able to mix his attacks. Because if it's just speed on the counter attack, and pressure in a similar way to the first fight, well, you do the same things, you are going to get the same outcome, possibly worse if Haney feels more confident or confident enough to let go. But if George has some other skills in the bank, and again, I haven't analysed it in great detail, but if he's got some other looks that he can give, he's certainly got the ability, he's certainly got the heart and the grind and the condition, and he's also got the mentality. This is one thing I don't think, because he's a pretty loud kind of character. That can get written off a bit because it's not overly Australian or Kiwi to be too brash. We prefer our stars to be, humble, blah blah blah. Israel has the same issue here, but we shouldn't underestimate or write off just because he's a little bit brash that he doesn't have a winning mentality. He does. And I would suggest he's not going to leave any stone unturned. And more importantly, this is a fight with one of the elite guys in the game. So, and he's already beaten one of the elite guys in the game in Lopez. People will say, bro, he had an off day or whatever, blah-de, 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 blah. But, Lopez beat Lomachenko, who I still think is, one of the pound-for-pound best. And Kambosos went over there and beat him. Grit, heart, determination, speed. And he's not the biggest punching guy in the world. So, I think, we should celebrate him. He's done bloody well. And to, have a big fight like that in Australia the first time is huge, And, it gets, and that's great. It gets all the armchair critics out who are probably giving him shit right now. But at the end of the day, that comes with the territory that people who really don't know fuck all about boxing will still pay money to watch it because they want to see a decent scrap.
Yeah.
And so I look. My mind leans toward Haney, but my heart kind of hopes that Kambosos and his team can come up with a way to nullify the jab, to counter that, to show different strategies, and put enough pressure on him so that he, his poise with that range that he has will be lost, and George can get into the trenches a little more.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Well, look, Mike, last question from us, because we know you just finished training and probably want to get some food in you and have a bit of a rest. So, look, we really appreciate your time. But you posted a quote a few weeks ago from the great Jim Rohn talking about how everyone must choose one of two pains, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And that kind of got me wondering, do you have any regrets in your martial arts journey that you can share?
Mate. There's actually too many to list. Zigged when I should have zagged. Fights that, mentally, I had a spasm. But the biggest regret for me would be just not getting up and giving it another crack. I don't have that regret, of walking away from something or taking a loss and then. They're not trying again,
Yeah.
And it refers to a lot of things really, that comment. First up, in training, and it comes back to the old cliche, talent will lose to hard work and dedication if talent refuses to work hard. So that's part of what that refers to. It refers to your ability to come back from losses or from setbacks and keep on going. And and I think that's just a general life lesson, really.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, you just lost you there for a second, Mike. That's all right. There we go.
Sorry about that, boys.
No, that's all right. Got you back.
You go to the pub.
Sorry, Mike, we lost you again. It seems to mute you.
There we go.
There we go. Got you back, I think. Look, as you said, it is a really powerful quote. And look, Mike, thank you so much for giving us some time today. We really appreciate it. We know you're a busy man with your own training and obviously coaching some of the best up-and-coming fighters in the world. So look, mate, all the best of luck coaching over at the UFC PI. We'd love to have you on again in future. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed being here. Cheers.
Thanks very much, mate.
Appreciate it.